Grand Risings, and I'm Raan Oosha, and welcome to Conversation on the Spiritual Journey. This morning I'm speaking with Georgi Y Johnson, a spiritual teacher, non-dual therapist, and author of the book, Non-Dual Therapy, The Psychology of Awakening. Grand Rising, Georgi.
Yes. Nice to meet you, Grand Rising.
Nice to meet you as well. Usually on this show, I speak with people about their spiritual journey, where they've come from, where they are, their awakening moments and so on. But today I've asked Georgi on just to clarify one concept, one idea, or maybe it's one law. So that's the reason I brought her on. The other day, a friend and I had an hour conversation about this law after we saw Georgi speak about it on a video. But first of all, Georgi, could you please explain what is non-dual?
Okay, non-dual is a very innocent and clean way to talk about the obvious fact of non-separation, that we're ultimately all interconnected, that this oneness, this unity, which we can only deny it by creating another reality on top of it. And underneath, we always fall back to this oneness, even if it's total universal absence of anything at all. Yeah, it's still one field, isn't it? Even if it's total non-existence, it's one field beneath. So this principle of oneness, this principle of where we separate, where we connect, all we do is create an experience on top of something deeper, which is a unity. So for example, I can say that, Georgi is totally separate from Grand Rising. And I can give all the reasons why, space, time, distance, I can throw all the reasons in the bucket, but all I'm doing is naming experiences. And even I can come down to this basic thing of like, I feel separate, but then it's like the feeling of separation is just a resonance, isn't it? It's just an experience arising, and it totally depends on you being there and me being here. Otherwise I couldn't even feel separate from you. So the connection is much, much deeper than the separation. So that's just one example of this one thing that we can never get away with, we can never lose, which is this non-duality, the unity, the oneness. It's the one thing that we can run for China, only these days maybe not, but we can run far, far away, we can take drugs, we can get drunk, we can escape in a billion different ways, and then we always come back to it, don't we? It follows us everywhere from inside. So that's something about where non-duality is from our point of view. It simply means not to. And it doesn't mean another reality against not two. It's like two was born of one, so two will always fall back to one. You get one by splitting up the one into two, but the one is still there in every moment of each separate form. So there's a lot of wisdom, and there's so many implications of this, and it's experiential wisdom. And at the same time, a lot of people talk about non-dual and they mean Advaita Vedanta teaching from India, or a particular kind of Hinduism. But it is found in Christian mysticism. It's found in cultures across the world. It's found in Aboriginal culture. It's found in Native American wisdom. It's found in did I say Christianity already? It's found in Islam, the religion of peace. It's found everywhere, this wisdom of unity. Even if the unity is the Mother Earth or the sun, which is everywhere, shining on everything, we always come back to the same mystical insight. So that's non-duality. People always get like, yeah, I'll give it to you in 3 words, and then it's like 10 minutes later. It's a principle of oneness based on experience.
So what's the difference between what is called traditional psychotherapy to non-dual, the therapy of non-dual? What's the difference?
Yeah. So traditional psychology, certain schools of conventional psychology, behavioral therapy, psychotherapy, they're very much orientated towards getting the person to function better in the world, which is with as little distress as possible, as little suffering as possible, which means that we often kind of like have to bring in a few pharmaceutical drugs or or whatever. And it never checks out what is a person, what is a personality, what the hell are we even talking about, and what is the world? Whose world are we talking about? Who gets to decide what world what person has to fit into? So it's dealing a little bit in this area of assumptions. And non-dual therapy is much more coming from an area of open-minded questions based on experience. So when somebody says, you know, I hate this world, I want to know about what particular flavor of hatred. And I want to know exactly what world it is that they're hating and what's that flavor exactly, what's going on here and what's going on there. Nothing is taken, nothing is a closed reality. The whole point is to like break open our concepts of reality, to bring experience to life, to come to life, and to trust that enough. Or at least often sometimes people are suffering so much that they haven't got much to lose anymore. You know, let's just at least find something out about this suffering. So there's a lot of differences. Psychotherapy assumes that there's a back door to the personality. No, not a back door, a back wall. It's like there is nothing beyond the personality. So you get to a place of boredom or nothingness or all kinds of nightmarish horrors, which we carry in our genetics from the traumas of the ancestors. And we don't go there because everything's about making the behavior fit in for this world and getting things back to normal, whatever that is, as soon as possible. And in this, they treat the unconscious mind as being like a black box, which it's like best not open it unless something escapes and then get the thing back in the black box again and fix the surface level. And the journey with non-dual therapy much more begins when we open the door at the back of the personality and jump into the dark night, jump into the unconscious and begin to feel blinded. What's really going on? And to do that, we use the sense of truthfulness. And this constant inquiring with the feelings. So you meet boredom, like there is nothing here, or else. It's like, okay, that's an interesting vibration. This nothing, like it's like when your partner says, "What's wrong with you?" and you're really pissed off, and you say nothing. You know, like this nothing isn't quite empty, is it? You know, it's like there's a lot of vibration there. And so we speak to that, not to the controlling mind, which says there's nothing here, go away, go somewhere else. So it's hardly belongs in the same sentence, non-dual therapy and psychotherapy. Some of the skills, the basic principle of compassion is the same, to try and reduce suffering. A lot of the skills can double up. You know, a lot of psychotherapists intuitively will feel that when the energy of peace comes forward, let's go with that. Or when the person begins to open their heart, then maybe let them really go with that, even if all of their upbringing is saying, don't go with the heart, go with the mind and get yourself a job. So individual psychotherapists can become non-dual. They can find themselves resourcing the quality of silence, for example, and the intimacy which is there, or puncturing illusions which are really holding their client in a certain position, like the illusion of being less than somebody else, the illusion of rejection. It's massive. So they can find themselves doing it anyway. So from where I'm sitting, in non-dual therapy is an evolution of psychotherapy. It's an inevitability. Also, non-dual therapy isn't just dealing with the psyche, it's dealing with the physical body, and it's dealing with the whole, it's got no ceiling. The whole realm of mystery and intuition and synchronicity and past lives, whatever comes forward, which we might feel ashamed to talk about with a conventional psychotherapist. In non-dual therapy, that is all, you know, like go for it, ayahuasca trips, journeys, whatever. There's a respect in it. There's an honor for what's needed and what's experienced. So if somebody's in a process of self-destruction, for example, it's like, what does the soul need from this process of self-destruction? What is it learning? We don't try and make them stop it and take it away from them, that freedom. You see, it's got a little bit more courage in it, a little bit more honor of what's really the magic of being alive and the kind of sanctity of certain soul level qualities like freedom, like the inner authority of that person. You know, I only slightly moved to the dark side because we're in the theme of repulsion today.
Yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, so I get to the question, the concept, the idea, the Lord, which you explained, and I saw 3 weeks ago in your video.
Yeah.
I've heard about the law of awakening.
Attraction.
Law of attraction, sorry. I heard that law of attraction, but never have I heard someone explain the law of repulsion.
Yes.
Could you please explain what is the law of repulsion?
Yeah. In the end, it's not that different. At the depth of the deepest magical depth of it, it's not that different from the law of attraction. In a way, it's one law. It's a law of destiny, or a law of what's most deeply needed, what the soul needs to be, what it needs to do, which is more often than not exactly where it is right now in this space here right now. So it's in a way it's connected with the law of destiny and the depth of purpose from a soul level. So that sounds completely abstract. So let's talk to the law of attraction Californian style. Yeah, so I want to be rich, so I should manifest myself some money in this world. You know, I don't want to be alone, so I should manifest myself a partner. And it's all based on The Secret, isn't it? The movie The Secret, or the book The Secret, which is the lower form of magic, which says that if you want the resonance of a certain experience, you bring it forward in your meditation or your consciousness right now, and like attracts like. So if you imagine every day that you're totally rich and you're sitting surrounded by bitcoins or whatever. Sorry, I'm in a Bitcoin mood. Cryptocurrencies everywhere, loads of it. So then, and you experience what that would be like, and you feel like that, then that will bring that experience forward towards you, because like attracts like. So that's the Californian idea of the law of attraction. That you can, with the power of your mind, create a certain experience. And it's a half truth. Because why the hell would I want to be surrounded by a bucket load of bitcoins? Why would I want that? So when I go into the resonance of like wanting to be filthy rich, yeah, and I'm imagining myself so rich, so rich, so rich. Partly what's coming into the resonant field at the same time, the field of like attracts like, is that very wound of poverty and lack, which makes me want to be rich in the first place, which gets me so entangled with this concept of richness and value being out there and not in here. So I start to now put out a vibration of like richness on the outside, the material shell, and all the time covering a kernel of total poverty and lack. Because you don't get one without the other. The driver of wanting to get rich is often poverty, isn't it? In this example, the driver of wanting to find a partner is often, I can't stand to be with myself. This loneliness is unbearable. I need somebody else to take away this horrible experience. So the driver comes with you when you fantasize in terms of the law of attraction of the Californian dudes. Sorry, I love you, California. But something happened there which is a little bit commercially invested with this whole concept, and it leaves a lot of casualties behind it. Because in the end, what you can end up with this lower magic is you end up with the wealth and you're utterly miserable. And you feel like the poorest man in the planet, and they get a bigger house and it makes no difference. And you've got the wife, but you feel incredibly alone. And it doesn't matter how many people you see, the isolation just gets deeper, because it's in a way investing consciousness in an acceleration of a certain thread of karma. And it's got a causality behind it. Like, why did we choose in the first place poverty and richness? Why did we even choose that? So there's also a factor behind that, and that's where destiny is, or karma is more involved. So the law of attraction is abused like hell in our modern world, because there is this constant belief that I must be separately successful from the whole, and I must never fail, and I must be separately happy. And that doesn't mean that everyone else has to be happy. This hedonistic kind of culture, like that I can get enlightened, and then I can leave all the other shit fuckers behind, and I will be Buddha, and I'll be slightly superior to all of them. You know? It's like, and losers, you know, like the unawakened public, you know, and it's so wrong, and not in the sense of being wrong, but it's so sweet in a way, because if you're happy, the only thing that happiness wants to do is share itself. And it can only share itself with the places of, if you've got in an explosion of love, then love seeks out suffering. And if we say, oh, no suffering, then we've got a problem. So this expansive nature of the good stuff, in a way, it's us that restricts our happiness in order to not share, in order to not be compassionate. And this is all where karma plays out. We have a karmic thread going on, an appointment with destiny, where we, to sort out those places where we lost our compassion, where we forgot that we are one. So for example, if we've got a real issue with child abuse, and this should not be allowed to be here on this world, then there's a place where we lose our compassion. Like the whole area of child abuse, we lose our compassion. Because we say it's not allowed to be here. And the moment we say it's not allowed to be here, we're also saying it was never allowed to be here. And in that movement, this is why we've lost compassion. It's not that we have to say, okay, child allowance is cool, child allowance is nice, and all of this. It's not at all. Not child allowance, child abuse. But if we cut off from an area of suffering, then we also cut off from the child that was abused. Or we cut off from the child that was abused inside the abuser. We cut off from the whole dimension of suffering, which is abuse. And then we build up a kind of karma where we can't bear to be separated, and we almost obsess about it, arguing with its existence. And it gets to a place where if it's like this, that there is child abuse, then there is no God. If it's like this, then I don't want to be alive. We get to this kind of core arguments with life itself, and that creates a very, very strong karma, the resistance to life, because life is stronger than our resistance. So this creates a kind of attraction towards those situations. You see what I mean? Either to and an interference with them, rather than a study of what has anyway already happened. Am I making sense? Are you following?
Yes.
So it's got a karmic connection at the depth. In the same way, just as there is a movement towards, there is a movement away. So what we're most repulsed to is also what we're kind of sneakily attracted to. And what we are very much attracted to, at a certain stage, we will feel a repulsion, maybe like never before, because the very nature of attraction is that it will bring us to lose ourselves. And we can't really often surrender the psyche so easily, because parts of it is wounded in intimacy. Parts of it, you know, you're surrendering yourself to a lover, and you get to this point of surrender, and then you get a sudden picture of your mother's face. And it's like, which is the other big lover from birth. And then it's like, you know, like, not here, not now, you belong somewhere else completely. And this whole repulsion says, this is not right. But what we're dealing with is a wound in intimacy. And we've been fed into like attraction is good, follow the attraction within boundaries and under a lot of control. Attraction is a law we can believe in, also because we see it in physics. But repulsion makes us bad. You're not allowed to feel that. You know, there's something wrong with you. If you go into your school and all the kids are swatting away, and it's like you feel totally repulsed by the whole idea. You're the teacher, the setup, the bullshit they're trying to teach you. That makes you a dropout. Bad kid, don't belong. You know, like loser. The whole thing, because nobody's saying, like, what is this repulsion about? Can you move with it? Where will it take you? If you really let yourself be propelled backwards by the repulsion into yourself, where do you come to? And that's why the law of repulsion, it's on the shadow side, it becomes very, very important. So when we really let ourselves be repulsed by something, like, for example, school, and we let ourselves be pushed back inside, we don't resist the repulsion, because you're getting pushed, something like, as if something totally gross is pushing you away, and you let yourself move away. Not resist it, not numb it, not, you know, get stoned so as not to feel it, but let yourself be totally pushed inside yourself. At a certain stage, you're going to find your inner teacher. You're going to find a place which is like of wisdom and aliveness and purity, especially pure knowing of what's true and what's not, which is quite rightly repulsed by all of this crap. I mean, really, Queen Victoria, I mean, who gives a damn? You know, it's like to an 8-year-old, you know, it's like, yes, our queen, and you see this cabbage, you know, you know, this entitled cabbage on top of a British Empire, which is a whole structure of like global abuse and colonialism. It's like, well, it's repulsive a little bit, and that's allowed to be felt as well. Doesn't make it evil, but it's like, if we're not repulsed by some of our history, we're never going to learn anything. You know, if we never mention Uncle Joe because Uncle Joe did shit with the girls at night, because it's so repulsive, but we're not allowed to say that, then little Sid will become Uncle Joe. You know what I mean? Because it's just not free, the movement of naturalness.
Can this repulsion be stored in the body and through past generations?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the whole thing about attraction and repulsion is that the beauty of it is that it's happening really in the pelvic area. And it's on that level, second chakra stuff, for anyone who works with chakras, it's on that level, which is like just beneath the navel, but just beneath the belly button. So it's on the level of like total naturalness of experience. So it's not just like I love to eat strawberries and strawberries are yummy to me. There's a living communication, energetic communication, and resonant communication between our naturalness and the strawberry, and that particular strawberry in this living body at this particular moment. So repulsion will tell us like, no strawberries for me right now, and attraction will say, yes, yummy, yummy, yummy strawberries. And our whole family will say, no, but you like strawberries. You always eat strawberries. And this interferes with this naturalness. And if you look towards animals, they move totally with naturalness. You know, one moment the dog likes Bonzo, next moment it's like Bonzo, you know, give me the cat food any day. It's because the body is a living, alive thing. And the trauma of the ancestors is carried on the epigenetic layer, meaning parts of the genes are coded with survival patternings based on bodily reflexes. So it's a movement towards and a movement against. That's what body reflexes do. It's like this is yummy. This is disgusting. This is good for me. This will bring reward. The whole biochemistry of reward. And this is dangerous. This is, we don't go there. And you see it even in the lab rats. You know, like the first findings about epigenetic trauma, it was done with I think it was rats or mice. I think it was rats that were given cherry blossom to smell, which is the most beautiful smell. But each time they smelled the cherry blossom, they gave them an electric shock. So for a whole bunch of generations after that, little baby rats were smelling cherry blossom and saying, this is absolutely disgusting. Because the body will recognize a frequency, and the frequency itself gets coded as a poison in a way. And that's how we learn. And that's how we navigate. But it's also how we learn, because if we can allow the feeling of repulsion, the whole story of trauma will come out within it, and it will liberate the natural here and now, attraction and repulsion. You see what I mean? So you can actually find if the rat could totally move with the repulsion and be taken out of a cage and totally given its freedom again and be surrounded by nature, in which there's also some cherry blossoms, at a certain stage, he might again begin enjoying cherry blossom. Repulsion will again become attraction. And maybe that cherry blossom will be more sweet than any other flower, because it's got a whole circulation of resilience within it.
So in this world, our society, is it that have so much repression, so much repulsion through the decades and centuries that needs to be cleansed before, as a world, we can move forward?
As a collective.
As a collective, yes.
I think that part of what you see in the present day, whether you're looking at cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and stuff, where people are cleansing themselves of the whole concept of nations and bank control and locality and not being able to take money over borders and class systems, just through like investing in cryptocurrencies, this egalitarian sense of value that each one can have 100% responsibility for their own value. That's a cleansing. And it comes partly, it's propelled from a total repulsion from this level of control, being controlled by the bank, being controlled by the financial system. The Chancellor of the Exchequer says, let's print some more money for COVID. And then they cancel your pension later on. And all of this, like being this learning of being buggered around and how unsafe this is, does create a repulsion. So a lot of people, the mail arrives, if they get snail mail, and there's a bank statement. And the last thing they're going to open is the bank statement. They literally feel repulsion. Repulsion towards all of this mechanism of slavery, modern day slavery. And in feeling that repulsion, and then that becomes the world. And they begin to look around and they have to work in a job and they don't really like their job because they had to get the job to get money to pay the bank. And so all of this movement of repulsion is building up, and it's creating something what the Indians would call the neti experience. It's a propulsion inwards where you begin to say, not this, not this, not this, not this, not this, not this, not this. I don't want to live, don't want this, don't want this. Let me be nothing. I don't need to be somebody. I don't need to have a class. I don't need to have a gender. Go in. And then you find that you're still there and you're massive. This kind of releasing of the personality through the back door, and that repulsion can literally bring us there. It's like, enough of this world. Enough. And then the magic is that having got free of it and touched something of true nature, the purity of the unnegotiable wholeness of what we actually are, this kind of love and joy and happiness, then you want to come back and bring it back into the world, and it's a whole circulation. And so that we have it can happen very quickly as well. But I don't think that it never, when enough people get pissed off, we have a revolution. As one of sometimes as a kind of voltage to break through the restriction, because a charge is needed to break through. But those people getting pissed off and the outcome of the revolution will depend on that individual responsibility to be able to feel what's there in terms of inner pain or inner suffering, or all of those places where we get stuck when we make that journey inside ourselves. So the individual responsibility, that 100% responsibility, is the solution to the collective, and we are a collective of individuals. It's not that the revolution can make our pain go away from the inside. You know what I mean? Because you get to a place of humiliation, for example, on the inside, and then you go and kill all the aristocrats. But in the end, and you humiliate them. So in the end, we just start breeding more and more humiliation, and it doesn't really take away this sense of humiliation, which is among us. It just is propagating it and screaming about it, but it's not really feeling the magic that's in it, which is the possibility of humility, which is one of the most empowering qualities ever. So this, everyone becoming a guru, everyone getting free on behalf of the whole, is a kind of revolution which is already happening, as far as I can tell. A lot of people moving into conscious awakening and psychotic breaks combined with conscious awakening, in which the psyche then takes care of itself and the awakening remains and starts to integrate. So a lot of people who are popping, in a way, we call it popping, like out of the sludge and like, oh, wow, cool. and then integrating that into a different kind of life, a different kind of purpose. It's a lot. Just look how many spiritual teachers there are, how many people get it. Like you, like all over the world, there is conversations happening, and there's a passion in it, and there's a beauty, and there's a care, and there's a love, and there's a togetherness in it. And it feels truthful and right in a way which is not like wrong versus right. It just, that's the law of attraction. When something is yummy, when something feels yummy, 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 when work is no longer work, it's a kind of play, it's a joy.
Because so long we've thought of repulsion as the word, as yucky, we don't want, we push away. But you're kind of saying we look at it deeply. We really see it. We go deep into it. And from there's an opening, an awakening, and a magic, like what you said.
That's one way that you can kind of find you let yourself be pushed backwards completely and just let it go, whatever's repulsive, don't be bothered with it. Let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. Even down to, it's disgusting that I have fleshy fingers. Let it go. So what am I? What's feeling the repulsion? What's able to feel repulsed, going deeper and deeper inside? Then there is this freedom, and it's got quite a push, quite an end. Like there's a pull of attraction, there's quite a pushback of repulsion, like two magnets. You know, so we can get pushed back inside ourselves by all kinds of horrible experiences. But then people around us tend to pull us back into it again. Yeah, no, don't grieve, take this Valium, you know, somebody dies. No, it's not okay, you're getting out of control, you're too much in the darkness. Come back. And we're not allowed to really go to this place where we actually pop through the inside of the psyche and find ourselves in this boundless space where everything's really peaceful and everything's okay, and it always was. There is a doorway there. So that's one way to move with repulsion, but there's also many tiny little ways of just respecting what feels right and yummy to us and respecting what we don't feel for in any moment. And that's really a physical thing. You know, what do we like and what do we don't like? And not to get in this moment. And that's also something which is, we've so much lost our sensual relationship to life, to actually the authority of our own sensuality, that this we find very pleasant, and this we really don't, we might have found it pleasant yesterday, but right now we don't feel for it. That we can actually, this affects our navigation, doesn't it? You force yourself to go to the pub even though you really don't feel, because you always go to the pub and everybody's waiting for you there. So if we were to let ourselves not go to the pub and wait, and then an attraction might come in another direction, or another pub, or another kind of activity. But we get our possibilities become very narrow because we're not allowed to feel repulsion. And partly why we're not allowed to feel repulsion is, and we don't want to feel repulsion, is because it's just an energetic frequency. But we're framed as thinking like Satan, you know, the devil, evil, all the bad stuff, nasty people, villains. They're full of repulsion and they're repulsive. They're in that field. So they despise the world and they're repulsed at happy people. And, you know, they're totally like breathing this. And so we must never be that, because that's repulsive. And even a small sense of repulsion, if we let ourselves, and it's all around us, it's spilling out everywhere through cities and the people just hiding from it with their smartphones. But if we let ourselves just feel it, so there's a field of repulsion. It's not actually like even subject object, it's a feel of like, bleh. And if we go into it, then as it passes into us, we actually feel either or both repulsed at the whole world, which makes us quite evil, repulsed at other people's happiness, or we feel that we are utterly repulsive, like despicable, untouchable, foul, or we just feel any root of any contraction, like incredibly wrong. This is like our essential wrongness. And it can seem like forever and ever amen, because it's a little bit out of time. It's so repressed, it's pushed out of time and space. So it's like, oh my God, I am actually Satan. You know, this despicable me. It's like, whoa. And all we did was let him pass through a place of pollution where there's a lot of pollution, a lot of revulsion or repulsion that nobody's owning. But it becomes like that. And if we could just stay with it and suffer it and say, okay, but I'm actually bigger than that. I can feel the sky above me and I can feel the trees. And this is just an experience arising of like, yeah, wow, that's curious. Then it just becomes a place where we have some kind of compassion. It's allowed to be here as well. It's got its own magic. It's got its own logic. And maybe it's mispurposed at that moment because there's not even this thing to be repulsed from, except it's got a purpose in getting us to be able to let it exist at all. And what we tend to do is when this energy comes near is we totally resist it because we must not be evil. So it's the other one is repulsive, or the other one is repulsing us because they're repulsive. And and we must not be that devil. The devil is out there. It's in the government. Boris is the devil. We must not be the devil. It's like it's in the whatever, the cabal, which is conspiracy theorying the whole world. That's where the devil is. It can't ever be close to home. And this is where we're losing our compassion, because we're taking things that we feel, energy that we feel inside ourselves, which is innocent and sweet and very pure, like a dog is repulsed by the smell of burning dog fur, for example. It's repulsive. A dog hates the smell of burning dog fur. Quite right, because that's burnt dog, isn't it? So we take an energy which is inherently innocent and pure. We kind of demonize it and satanize it because in the past it's been used to control people. They're not allowed to feel repulsed about endless slavery. And we throw it out there, far away into the emptiness, as far away from ourselves as possible. And then we wonder why we feel so alone and why we have this little sense of compassion and the world is such a cruel place. We follow, we lose our naturalness and we end up like a little bit like people in Banbury, you know, like with like zombies. Sorry, Banbury. That's near where my mother lives. You know? Little bit moving in slow motion. You say good morning and they don't even blink, and then you think, did I die? Am I invisible? Because we stop feeling, our senses close down. Attraction and repulsion has everything to do with being physically alive, doesn't it? Appetite for life, passion for life, love of life, yumminess of life. Everything then starts to taste bland because we can't feel if it's disgusting, we can't feel if we like it, it's all on the basis of an outer authority. Yeah, meat and 2 veg, you like it, this is your dinner, don't taste it. Nobody cares if it's actually pleasant to you. Right?
And in the way you spoke, going deep into it straight away, there's that connection straight away with everything and everybody when you really feel deeply.
Yes, yes, exactly.
And I guess automatically then it's not even trying for compassion. Compassion happens automatically.
Absolutely. Compassion. It's enough just to let something, to admit that something is here. That's compassion. Admission. And where do we lose our compassion? When we say to the little girl that's been raped, it never happened. Because in our minds, it never should have happened. Because we locked up all the rapists in order to make sure that it never happened. But it happened to this little girl. And we don't admit it. You see, we negate parts of experience. So everyone knows what the feeling of repulsion is, but who admits it? It's like the feeling of jealousy. It's another one of those taboo energies. We all know what it is. It's pretty difficult to experience, but we all know what it is. But who will own it? Who can admit it? Who can say, okay, this also has some kind of purpose? There's something alive in it. It's not random. It's not like brought in from Mars and chucked into humans and we should chuck it back again. It's part of our humanity, isn't it? It's got it's a particular flavor of suffering which is going somewhere and asking for something. So it's about admission. That's compassion. And karma and attraction and the whole movement of destiny is connected with where we have lost our compassion. We have a spiritual conflict almost, and it reflects also through the epigenetic trauma. But there's a spiritual conflict in areas where we feel we lost our compassion, where we have no more compassion. So an example, and it doesn't sound non-compassionate, it sounds very caring. So sometimes what you hear in groups and stuff is people say, well, a child should not die before the parents. This should not be allowed. You know, this is unnatural. And there's a kind of passive aggression towards the whole universe in it. Like, if it's like this, then cancel the universe. Negate everything. There is no God, there is no natural, there is no nothing, because I decide what natural is. And what I decide is, me, out of my horror and fear of suffering, is that a child should not die before their parents. Can't deal with this. So I have no compassion for them. So then comes along a mother who lost her child. But this is unnatural. This should not happen. This must not be allowed to happen. So who is this woman who's lost her child? She's some kind of aberration. So where's our compassion? It's like we're looking at our worst nightmare fear, and it is here, and it has happened, and it does happen. It happens through all of nature. And we cut off our compassion. We said, no to this part of life. And so that's a spiritual conflict. So what happens then is that that person will begin living a life which is very much determined, destined to spin around this conflict of grief and children and loss, and what's the essence of parenthood. And they'll be confronted all over the place with people who lost their children, and with the fear of losing their own if they have one. From the beginning, from the moment they conceive, there'll be the possibility of abortion. There'll be the possibility of something happening to the baby during the birth. There'll be the possibility they'll keep the children so close out of fear of losing them that they practically lose the children, because the children are like disconnecting already. The spirits fly out. You see. So compassion is everything to do with just just purity. The purity of just admitting what is anyway already here. And actually, you know, a lot of vibrations, they happen first. They already happened. First, there is a vibration of, let's say, hatred or repulsion in connection, maybe with somebody we love so much, like our sister, who knows what, but it's there. So it happened already. It's a done deal. We're fucked. But then it travels up the vagal nerve and it comes up to the brain, and you say, oh, that's not okay. Cancel what I just felt. It never happened. You know, arranged face. So what are we doing to our physiology? What are we doing to our bloodstream? What are we doing to our naturalness? And what are we doing to our relationship, if in this instance with our sister at that moment? It's losing its flow, it's losing its integrity, it's losing its naturalness. The mind is the last one to get on the boat and then decide reality afterwards. It's lovely how we seem to think we can decide reality.
So is it that we can, in the moment, feel the energy arise even before we call it or name it repulsion? And in that moment is a cleansing, because you're seeing it as it's risen.
Yes. Yeah. And even after we've named it as repulsion, we can say, okay, but it's just an emotion. It's just a vibration. Let's go back again. Let's check it out. What does it feel like? How does it vibrate? What's its rhythm? How does it move through the system? What happens if I really let it be with a life of its own? Because it's not going to stay in one place. It's a living thing. It's like you get a little amazingly formed centipede on your floor, and the first reflex is to pick it up and chuck it out. But what happens if you just stay around it? Watch how it moves with its little legs and how it curls up, and what's in there? Who's in there to connect with it? The centipede, because there's a center of consciousness in there. You know, there's a whole guy, so sweet. So it's the same with any kind of form of emotion or anything that's alive, and emotions are very alive, and they're full of information. And part of the information is actually relevant. If it's not relevant to our present time navigation, and if we let it, it will tell us that, then it's relevant to our history. It's relevant to our ancestors. It's relevant to the movement of relationship that's been until now. It matters. And it will clarify itself if we let it, if we connect with it.
It seems like then, if we're not honest with the repulsion, we actually project our own fears onto everyone else.
Yeah.
And that continues from one person to the next, and that's how it continues.
Exactly.
It's the honesty at the beginning to own the repulsion.
Yeah, or at any moment during.
Yeah.
Because in a way, there's no beginning. Because, you know, we don't even know when we feel repulsion. They didn't start with us. And it can be a head fucker, like, you know, if it's interpersonal and you feel repulsion, well, are they repulsed at you or you're repulsed at them? And who started it? You know what I mean? It's like, you find me disgusting right now? No, but I think that you find me disgusting right now. So but I don't find you, but neither do I. So what's this field of disgust between us? That's like the classic argument when the couple stop speaking to each other and there's just this simmering, disowned energy there, right? And each one thinks it belongs to the other, who's a real asshole at that moment, or a real bitch, you know. It's like but it's interpersonal, the energy. You know, you can move into a place where they're demonstrating, for example, about, you know, against the government, against the lockdown and all of this. There's a certain energy there. And when you move into it and with a curiosity. What is this energy? Let's say the energy of conspiracy thing. It's got a certain energy. You move into it, then for a while it's like the only way you can experience it is by becoming it for a moment, but then the art is to keep moving and to stand on the other side, and then to feel yourself free of it, and then to go in and out again a little bit, to get a sense of like, what is this flavoring? Because when you're talking about disowned horrors, one way we tend to disown them is to throw it out there as a conspiracy theory, because somebody's got to be in control of these demons. It can't be that nobody's in control, that we are 100% answerable to our lives, and we're not in control, and nobody else is taking care either. So we make this movement, and this is partly what is happening also in the collective now, of like blaming the authority out there as being an evil conspirator, because we partly meet stuff inside ourselves which we can't bear. We're not humble enough to own that also this is there in our humans as an experience, as a possibility. All these little demons we got inside, of greed and manipulation and addiction to medical solutions, to areas of suffering which can't be fixed medically. Like, we're all in it. We're all in the same stuff, you know. It's, you know, we say we don't want to get vaccinated, for example, because it's a big government plot to take us over. But we will take a paracetamol, and we will go and to the doctor if we've got cancer, and probably take chemotherapy in all directions. You know, we don't really trust the kind of aliveness of our own well-being and our health and our naturalness. And partly the reason is because that inherent biological authority of what's yummy to us and what supports our well-being and what's not yummy to us, what's repulsive and what really doesn't support our well-being, we lost a connection with it because we're not allowed to feel repulsion. See what I mean? It's really like the still small voice in the gut, in a way. It's like, you want to know if to take a vaccination against COVID or not? Ask your gut. And if your gut says no, then that's for this body and for this vaccination in this time and this space. It's not for your neighbor. It's not for anyone else. It's nothing about the government. It's just that it's not the right thing for your whole incredible orchestra of immunity in that moment. But what we do is, because we can't feel the repulsion, or we can't take responsibility for the no that comes forward, is we say, oh, it's because they're trying to control us, and it's because this, and it's because that. We lose our authority. I go off on one. We talk about repulsion, I end up talking about all my hobby horses.
It seems like when you go deep into this, and you can see who we actually are, you know, so consciousness expressed itself through these energetic beings. And from there, you can feel who we are, but I guess we've lost contact, and we're told what to do, told what to say, given orders. So we don't actually say what we feel. We're not honest about it.
Or we don't even connect with what we feel. We forgot how to connect, to consult. You know, we used to have this poodle, and whenever the poodle got confused, he would lick his own dick and would call it Consult Willie. You know, look, he does Consult Willie, right? But he would consult with the rest of his body. He would literally kind of put himself into his own pelvic area and comfort it and everything, and then he'd know where he stood and what he wanted. So we forgot how to consult with the pelvic area in a way, to feel into, to feel what the body is saying, to feel if we find the still small voice, they're right there in the guts of ourselves, beneath the guts of ourselves, or in the depths of ourselves. But it's really the physical body is the most honest, truthful, pure source of information we've got. And that's where the law of attraction and repulsion is going on. You know, for example, if you eat a poison, regardless of what you think about it, or even if you don't even know that you ate a poison, your body's going to throw up. So it knows. It doesn't bugger around with social niceties like I mustn't throw up on my grandmother's sofa. It's quite trustworthy.
So as we go on, just how you explain it and you bring attraction and repulsion together, Is that the way we need to see it then, rather than isolating the law of attraction and putting it there, is to bring the whole thing together, unity, which is the non-dual way of seeing things?
Yeah, yes. So what the non-dual way of seeing it, in the end, every duality, like attraction and repulsion, in the way it's one need behind it. There's one quality behind it. At least that's in the non-dual therapy kind of our non-dual therapy way of looking at things. So there's, for example, with guilt and the sense of guilt and the sense of accusation, like accusing the world of being a bad place. The non-dual quality behind it is inherent innocence, which we never lose. And so the guilt is frozen innocence, and the same guilt thrown outwards as accusation is frozen innocence. So our badness is innocence in a crisis. And it's all to do with manifesting through the psyche, through the physical into this world, which is a service which we're doing on a soul level. So attraction is repulsion and repulsion is attraction. But as we move into form and we try to find our direction, to navigate, to know where we're going, and I don't just mean physically, I mean with our lives, that sense of direction. We need both to be active. It's totally connected with the inner compass. There's really in the pelvic area an inner compass, which will tell us mostly where not to go. Because each moment of experience is so precious. So we might get 99 no's to one yes from this compass, but that one yes is really what's right for us as a soul in this moment, in this lifetime. I give an example of Russell Williams. He's a teacher in Sale near Manchester. He died. He was like 90, 95, 96 when he died. And he lived through Dunkirk and the wars and lost his parents at a very young age. And basically, it's like he did a whole non-dual retreat without ever doing it, because he was deprived of food, he was deprived of family, he was deprived of sleep, he was offering himself constantly in service to the whole. And at a certain stage, he kind of totally came into enlightenment and awakening. But along the way there were stages, like he got blown out of his body in an airfield in England by somebody who left the voltage out, trying to fix the floodlights for the planes to land during the World War II. And he felt himself in this divine state of emptiness and peace. And he saw his body down there. And he knew he had two options, either to be born again as a baby, which to him he felt total repulsion, like no way I want to be born, or get back into that body and finish your job that you're here to do. So he forced himself back into the body, which he said was the hardest thing he ever had to do, to force himself back into what was basically a dead body, which was lying down there from this state of grace and state of peace. And this is a guy, this is like the 1940s. This is a guy who had no context whatsoever, no new age, no teachings, no internet, no nothing. This was his experience. But after the war, he'd learned all about electricity and all of this. And he had this deal with his friend that after the war, there's so much electricity destroyed, we can make money now. Don't have to be poor anymore by fixing the electricity. And so this was the plan. And then his inner compass said, no way, you can't do this. It didn't explain why not, because it's always a need to know basis, this kind of deep intuitions of the pelvic area. It's just yes and no. And like vaccination, no, it doesn't tell you why. But it said no. And so he started to walk. And each time an opportunity would come, he was walking down through Bath towards Somerset, I think around Glastonbury area. And each time an opportunity would come and he'd say, okay, should I do this? And he would get no. And he comes to a place of practical starvation, and he's washing his clothes in a river. And there's a guy waiting by the side of the road, and he comes and the guy gives him some of his tea, which apparently in those days was in the middle of this like economic devastation, was a huge gesture of sharing. And he told Russell, if there's a circus leaving town over there, and if you 2 hours away, and if you can get there in time, they'll have a job for you. And after all of this no, he got yes. And there was absolutely no way logically that he could even get there in time and all of this. It's like circus, what the fuck? But he starts walking, and somehow he gets there just as it's leaving. He hops onto it, and he becomes the guy that looks after the horses. It's so beautiful, because the looking after the horses later led to his enlightenment. The horse gave him the enlightenment, the transmission. But this is the inner compass. This is the law of repulsion and attraction. So we have to have a lot of trust in a way to not worry too much if we got a lot of no's, a lot of repulsion, like no, 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 until we find the yes. And then things can begin to become another yes, and another yes, and another yes. You see what I mean? There can be a lot of no's until we get to a certain place, and then we're in the right place, and then we begin to get lights going on all around. Maybe a few more no's, but
in a sense, though, all of those no's are taking you to a yes to life.
yes,
It's saying
exactly.
no here, so you keep going this way. It says no here, so you keep going. So you're on an ongoing road.
Yes.
It's just that we've been used to a no as a negative.
Yes.
These no's are in vibration with life.
Yes, exactly. But if he'd said, oh God, I'm such a lazy, spoilt brat, I should go and finish the electricity and I'm going to starve and all of this. If he'd had conditions, if he'd not listened to himself, he would have spent another 10 years buggering around. You know what I mean? He was able to respect his own gut feeling, his inner no. That's a big deal, because it actually, the inner no, like, should I marry this person or not? The inner no shows up as a kind of queasy feeling in the gut. And we can ignore it for sure. That's how we learn to respect it. Because when we ignore it, we tend to suffer a little bit more. And that's a good way to learn to listen to the intuition, by ignoring the intuition. How else would we learn to listen to it, to trust it? But the feeling of that inner gut feeling that says no, no. It's almost like a sickly feeling in the gut, isn't it? It's close to repulsion. You recognize it, that queasy feeling, like it's not quite, you know, not quite yummy. And you don't know why. She, you know, the woman, she's beautiful, she's amazing, she's lovely, she's intelligent, but no. What can you do? It's like maddening.
I guess it's trusting our instincts,
Yes,
our feelings,
exactly.
trusting who we are.
Especially instinct. And that means that because it's at the instinctive level, we can smell it. It's to do with taste, it's to do with smell. We can use our physical senses. You know, dogs can smell cancer, they can sniff out disease, they can sniff out cannabis, they can sniff out explosives, but they can also even sniff out disease. So much so that there's a guy here who's developed a whole nanosensor technology based on the principle of dogs to take a breathalyzer through your smartphone to see if you're developing cancer or not, using literally the same principle of sensors, which is there inside a dog's nose that can sniff out disease. So that's how much potential we also have. And that's there, you know, if it smells off, trust it. And the more we trust it, the more something awakens in terms of this whole part of our brain, this whole part of our mental potential, our sense potential, our potential to sense through the nose. We could also talk about the eyes, and seeing magnetic fields, but through the nose. And then strange things start to happen. So somebody can come in and they've had a bath and they've washed and you can smell the soap on them and they look healthy, but there's a smell of shit around. And you're thinking, did they shit themselves? Did I shit myself? Did the dog shit himself? Like, what is that? But it's got a slightly more subtle flavor to it, for example. So there's a lot of information that we can get, which is non-physical, through opening up this instinctive layer. And it's not woo-woo. It's really not woo-woo. Otherwise, it would be woo-woo that they take dogs in Heathrow Airport to see if you've got a bomb. We have that capacity just like every other animal. We just don't use it, and then we lose it a little bit. And the more we use it, the more we will develop it.
That's extraordinary, because it then brings us to beyond this small self.
Yeah.
There's so much information out there that we are not accessing.
Yes.
The possibility then to create, you know, a different life, a connection is just there, right in front of our eyes. It's just that we are not seeing it at the moment.
Yes. Yeah. And the thing is to take the next little step and the next little step and the next little step. So what is it like, you know, to open up the sense of smell, for example, to actually see what something smells like, even as an imagination, because it's the same thing. So you got a conflict, a decision. So you look at this possibility, sniff it. What would it smell like? It's all opening up the instinctive level, and the instinctive level has everything to do with naturalness and the law of attraction and repulsion. And our body isn't separate from our soul. It's an expression of our soul. So it will, after it's shed a little bit of its inheritance, it will become such a navigational tool. But we've been abusing it, we've been pushing it, we've been deforming it, we've been trying to make it something else other than it is. And in a way, we have to invite it to trust us again, to tell us what it feels, like an animal, you know, that it's okay to start the communication between head and body again, as if the head's not part of the body, that between that part of the mind that dreams of being in control and the body.
Georgie, is there anything about repulsion that we haven't spoken about, or that you would like to say?
I'm sure. Yes, just one thing. There is a deep connection with where we have been hurt, as all of us in our culture, as babies, in taking in the world. So there's this sweetness and love of our mother, and there's the nurture, but there is something else coming in as well, which is difficult for us to swallow. And that can later express as addictive patterns or escape strategies, or self-abuse, or eating disorders, our relationship to food. And when we begin to work with the pelvic area with an admission, just a curiosity, a soft curiosity. What is this horrible energy? What is it about? Let it be alive for as long as it's alive, and it will come and go, because it's informational, it's navigational. Then a lot of these processes will begin to unfold and to heal if we let it in relation to that. So if we had an eating disorder, for example, and or even a sexual disorder, is the same thing. We're all broken also sexually. We're all broken in our relationship to food. We're all broken in our relationship to naturalness. But when we start moving into the freedom of what we actually instinctively feel for, instinctively feel attracted to, instinctively feel repulsed from, this will begin to support the unfolding of a healing process through so many other layers of the psyche. And let's make it round. Traditional psychotherapy will speak to the head. It's not going to speak to the pelvis. So in this, it's a master key. It's really worthwhile. A somatic experiencing will often speak to the pelvis and will respect these whole areas. But this is where the evolution's happening in therapy, in a way.
I guess
we are incarnating into the body, all of us.
I guess then we become extraordinarily sensitive to feelings and emotions, and then from there we're gonna see and feel so much more. Yes,
we become sensitive but not neurotic, because also what's there in the pelvic area is this incredible infinite expanse of peace and safety and boundless space. Once we find the emptiness there, the boundless space, then there's all the room for sensitivity without it becoming an overload. So most of us, until there's this drop into the pelvis, are sitting pretty much on the solar plexus, on our fears, on our basic fears. And you ask them what's going on in the lower half of the body, and it's like, what? It's just abstract. So you'd even ask, what do you feel in your leg right now? What do you mean, what do I feel in my leg? Nothing, it's like, what leg? So that creates a kind of neurosis, because then we feel even more afraid, because we're not supported by the basis of the body or by the earth beneath our feet. And then we start to spiral in all kinds of mental ways out of ourselves to try and get relief, because to that fundamental feeling of non-safety. And of course, the more we spiral out, the less safe we feel. And so it becomes a bit of a shitload, a shit show, a vortex of anxiety and all. So the pelvic is really, 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 really great. And all of this instinctive thing that we feel more, but because we get more information, we become more safe. In Thailand, when there was the tsunami, the animals all got the fuck out of the way. They felt it coming, And the people were like, have you called your mother? You know, and the sea has disappeared. The whole earth is going, whoa, energetically. The birds have disappeared, the elephants have disappeared, and the people are sunbathing in their heads. So actually to be alive vibrationally makes us incredibly safer. Also in terms of survival, it doesn't make us hypersensitive or neurotic or too precious to touch. It actually grounds us in the miracle of being alive, like all of animals. And we're animals as well. You know, the piss went to our heads that we think we're not animals or that we're superior or something. I mean,
it's more of a sensitivity with care and love, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
and power and beauty.
Yeah,
and,
yes, that's the sensitivity, yes.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Georgie, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you.
I hope it makes it clearer, probably not.
It did, and from now on, just the both repulsion and attraction, there has to be unified. You can't really speak from how I see it now.
Exactly.
That the other brought together.
Exactly, exactly. To attend to both.
So thank you very much for the talk today and for just clarifying this issue. It's been a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So thank you for coming to Raan Oosha's conversation on the spiritual journey today with Georgie. I will put links with Georgie's book and any other sites. I'll put it on the YouTube link, Georgie, when I post it. So thank you very much. Bye.